In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your inner tie rod on your Buick Encore. It's located behind your front wheel. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to remove our lug nuts. Make sure you have a hand on it. Remove your wheel. I'm going to use a 21mm wrench on my jam nut and a 13mm wrench on my inner tie rod to hold it steady. I'm going to pull down and loosen your jam nut. I'm going to use an 18mm socket to take off this nut. Now we're going to tap here with a sledgehammer and disconnect the tie rod from the knuckle. Now we're going to take the outer tie rod off, and as we do so, we're going to count the amount of turns it takes to take it off. I'd say about 15. I'm going to write that number inside the wheel well so I know how many it takes to keep this car in alignment. I'm going to take off this nut. Now we're going to remove our clamp for our bellows. I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver, a long one, and twist this clamp a little bit, get it loose. And break it off. We're going to replace this with a zip tie. Now we're going to take this off. I'm just going to pull. You're going to take a flathead screwdriver and just pry that off. If it's stuck, then you can take the whole thing off. We're going to use our inner tie rod tool to disconnect the tie rod from the rack. We're going to turn this to the left to loosen it. Once you crack it loose, you can loosen that tool up, take it off, and take it out by hand. Now we can take this off. You want to clean the end a little bit and get ready for install. We're going to apply red thread locker and insert it into our inner tie rod and thread it on. We'll be torquing this to 52 foot-pounds. Now we're going to put our tool on so we can tighten this down. Now we can remove our tool and put our bellow on. Now we're going to put some grease in here. and put our bellow on. If it's a tight fit, I like to get my zip tie started. I'm just gonna put a little lubricant there to help our boot slide on. You're gonna make sure your bellow is flush against the steering rack. And just slide it on. I'm underneath the car, near the subframe. It's the easiest spot to get to it. You're gonna tighten your zip tie. So just tighten up your zip tie and cut off any excess that there may be with a pair of wire cutters. Usually work well. You want to put a little grease here for when you get an alignment. This moves. So pull your bellow down where the little groove is, and then you're going to put your zip tie. Make sure you don't over tighten this. You do want this to move around. So tighten it and then make sure that this spins. Cut the excess off with some wire cutters. Put your nut on. And I'd say put it about halfway up. Now we're going to put our auto tie rod on and we're going to count the turns to 15. So 1, 2, and loosely jam it in place. Now we're going to take this nut off and install it into our knuckle. Put your tie rod in the knuckle by aiming the stud in the hole. Jam it up there and start your nut. This outer tie rod doesn't have a cotter pin, it's got more of a nylon insert. We're going to torque it to 22 foot-pounds first, and then the final pass will be 120 to 135 degrees. And all that means is, A, you can use a torque wrench that has that setting, or you're going to go like between 1/4 and 1/2 more turn. And that's what we're going to do. To hold this center still while I tighten the nut, I'm using an 8mm socket and my 1/4" ratchet. And this is a special tool designed so you can get something inside there while you tighten the nut down. So we're going to torque this nut to 22 foot-pounds first. All right, so that's 22 foot-pounds, and now we're going to go a little bit past 1/4 turn. So I can keep track of that. I'm going to start here. And go 1/4 turn first. And then I'm going to reposition. Go a tiny bit more. And that should be good. Using a 22mm, we're going to tighten up this jam nut. It may be a different size than the one you took off. And I'm going to use a 13mm wrench to hold the inner tie rod still. Make it tight and then go a little bit more. Install your wheel. Start your lug nuts by hand. Make sure your bottom lug nut is centered and walk the wheel on. We're going to torque this to 100 foot-pounds in a star-like pattern using a 19mm socket. Now you're going to want to take your vehicle down to your local alignment shop to get it aligned.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.